Hey everybody, this is Perch. Okay, so fair warning. If you listen to this channel, and I realize I do a lot of weird thumbnails and things that make no sense to anything. Trust me, though, the art that shows up in the videos, the thing that changes about every 2 minutes, there's always a reason. It may make sense only to me, but this is the special little gift I'm giving to myself when I'm making these videos, is the art always connects to something that I'm thinking of. And sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it's more esoteric. There's always some reason. So this video is not going to be a typical kind of comic video, but there's a lesson in here. But like if I'm very lucky, one of you there may be I may get 1,000. I know I don't do the videos like this woke shit is woke and you should fucking hate the woke. So I don't get like the 4,000, 5,000, 10,000 views per video. I'm like a 1,000, 2,000. I'm perfectly comfortable with that. But this video may apply to one of you. And if it only applies to one of you, it's a success. But I recognize that like 1,000 of you are not going to understand what the fuck this video is, and I'll get some unsubscribes from the channel over this video. But here goes anyway. I'm going to tell you a very rare, won't happen other places, personal perch story in this video. Okay, so again, this will interest none of you, but maybe one person. So if you're interested in this, stick around. I'm going to get this out in about 10 minutes, but I want to tell you a story. And believe it or not, this does apply to comics. It just may not make sense to most of you, but for a couple of you that hang out and, attempt it, it will. All right, so here we go. Once upon a time, a long time ago, when I was going to college, I went to a college and then I went to a specialty school after college to get a graphic design degree and art degree. Now I had no illusions. I was getting this degree to go into comics. This degree was for advertising. It was actually for something a little bit weirder. I had this belief that the people who would be successful in business and in consulting and kind of technology would be able to do something called visual storytelling. The basic idea is some of these concepts were so hard, so complex, that having graphic design skills, visuals, would help explain these very complicated topics to the masses and therefore be able to get the funding and the necessary things to move things along. That was my thought process. And it turns out I was right, although I was maybe a little, 10 years early in this assessment. Back around like 2005 or so, this got to be really, really popular, and there were a bunch of people who made a ton of money. But I'm doing this in the early 90s, which is a different time where it hadn't been proven out. So I was like depending on your point of view, I was either too early and stupid or a trailblazer. You get to pick what kind of spin you want to put on it. But anyway, I went to art school, and this art school, and it wasn't really a complete art school. They were doing all kinds of things, typography. They were doing advertising. They were doing visual comms. They were doing all these kind of different, aspects of this piece. So I went to this school, and in this school, I should put this up front. If you were going to here, you couldn't really get a scholarship to this school, which means you were paying to go to this school. So if you wanted to go to it, you were going to pay about at the time probably about 80,000 a year to go to this school and to get this degree and to have this education. And there were a couple people that were there on scholarships or some kind of place where they didn't have to pay that money, but most people were paying that money to get to take these classes. And so I'm going to school, and the school was really based in 6-month semesters, so you would have kind of radical class change every 6 months. So the first 6 months, there are a lot of basics and fundamentals, and for the art part of the class, you were taking a lot of drawing fruit in bowls and kind of other bullshit that was pretty basic. And then in year two, sorry, in year two, I use a little headphone when I'm recording some of this stuff, and every now and then the headphone just like craps out. like midway through the video. And so the like there's a brief pause while I remove the headphone and just talk into the speaker of the phone, which is more dangerous in driving, but hey, you haven't heard me die on the channel yet, so I think everything's fine. Anyway, that's a little behind the scenes of the Perch channel right there. So anyway, in year 2, they started doing I don't remember the name of the class, but basically the point is that twice a week you'd go in and you would draw on this giant ass sketch pad, a sketch pad almost as big as you would draw nude people. And there were 2 classes. One was a class where every, once during the class, you, the student, had to get up and take off your clothes and be nude and be drawn. And everybody had to take a turn. And that was kind of a deal. If you wanted to take the class, everybody had to take a turn in doing it. And in the other class, it was just, they'd hire models to come in. And the teacher did this thing where it's like, well, to pass this class, you're going to have to fill out 3 of these sketchbooks. And the sketchbooks were, again, these giant, almost as large as you sketch pads. And you had to fill out 3 of them in order to pass the class. And basically, they would bring in nude models, but you couldn't fill out 3 sketchbooks full of models in the class. So at the end of the first one, the teacher's like, "You're going to have to go and get somebody to pose for you to do this, to finish this class. So either, you're going to have to go get your girlfriend or whoever or boyfriend or whatever it was to pose for you, or, and the teacher handed out this price sheet. It's like, here are a bunch of models who will come to the school after hours, and you can come and use one of the classrooms, and you can pay that model to model for you, and you could draw them. And the prices were like, $1,000 for a couple hours for the model to come and pose for you while you drew them. And I remember getting this piece of paper, and I'm really pissed because I was like, I'm paying for this class, and then the class set up this thing where I have to pay more in order to pass the class. And it's not like $20, $40, $60 in textbooks. So we have to pay $1,000 for a couple sessions. Like I may have to pay $3,000 or $4,000 to pay a model to come and do this class. And I remember just being pissed because it felt like a bait and switch, and I don't know, it just felt like they were gouging me. And through this process, I later found out that the teacher was earning a commission if you hired the model to, pose for you. The teacher was getting some money. So it like the whole thing seemed scummy as hell, that the teacher was basically, assigning work that they would get a kickback on. It just felt very, the whole thing. I mean, I'm sure, this is early 90s. If it was, 2020, well, I mean, it's COVID in 2020, but it's 2020 with no COVID where you could actually exist like a normal human being. I'm sure this will get shut down. But anyway, it's the early 90s. And and simultaneously, we were learning in a different class the idea of something called speed drawing. And in this, it was the idea of being able to glance at something and then very quickly get the basics of the whatever you're trying to draw down on paper, and then fill in the blanks based on your imagination. It was and so what they did was they walked us up. In this case, I was in Seattle, and they walked us to Pike Place Market. And I remember we sat around Pike Place, and we would draw, tourists coming into Pike Place Market. We would like glance at them, we'd fix it in our minds, and we would quickly sketch them, and then we would put it in the paper. And so we were doing this speed drawing. And I really like that. I like this idea of you capture a basic form in your mind, and then you sketch out the picture, and it allowed you to create kind of a fantastic kind of fantasy element of real life. And I always equated that to comics. At the time, I was really, fascinated by Chris Bachalo and artists like that. Shortly thereafter, I remember Generation X came out. He was doing Shade the Changing Man, and I was buying all those comics. And I was like, I was just fascinated by his ability to do really realistic people, but in a very different way, in a way that wasn't realistic. And so I really took this idea of the speed drawing class. And so this is in my mind. And meanwhile, I'm grappling with the idea of having to spend 3 grand. And keep in mind, the school is expensive. So I had the money. I could have paid the 3 grand. I was doing some work on the side. So I had cash, but I didn't want to give the cash to this teacher because I felt it was a scam. And so we're sitting there in Pike Place, so we're sketching people out. And I'm looking across the from the public market. And at the time, and I don't know if it's still there or not, but right catty corner to Pike Place Market was a strip joint called Deja Vu, and it was a strip club basically. And I remember I was speed drawing, and I was looking at the strip joint in the background, and I was thinking, I remember my brain like clicking into place. I'm like, wait a minute, hang on, I've got a genius idea. And so after class that day, a couple of my friends, I'm like, hey, come with me. I've got an idea. And they're like, because everybody's bitching about this. They're going to have to pay $1,000 to hire a model to do this kind of stuff. And, and so I took them into the strip joint, and I remember being very clever. It's like one of those things. It's like one of the most clever things I've ever done in my life. And I always, throughout all the things I've done in life, I've always wanted an award for this moment, which of course I never get an award, but it was like me at my most clever. And I remember going to the bouncer, and we had like this giant portfolio case, this giant, sketchbook. And we walk in there, and the bouncer doesn't give a shit who goes in there, but I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go in here and I want to sketch the girls. And the bouncer's like, I don't know if you could do that. I'm like, here's $50. We just shut the fuck up and let us sketch the girls. And the bouncer's like, well, you better buy some drinks. But of course he took the money. And so we all went in, and it was like 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon. I mean, it's early in the day. So the girls are not like, super. The ones who wanted to become professional strippers and or porn stars were later in the day. So they weren't bad looking, but they were still, they were good models. So we went in there, and I told my friends, I'm like, hey, here's the deal. All we have to do is buy one of these like $5 drinks every hour, and we can come in here and sketch everything we want. And the girls are going to be happy about this because we're not, sitting here going to like try and rape them when they come out of the club. We're just like here for art class. It'll be a little weird, but it will be totally safe. And I was 100% right. We went in there, and the girls are like, nobody's in this club at 2 in the afternoon except like one alcoholic and another guy who's passed out on the floor. And so we go in there, and the girls are like, oh, here's live human beings. They're going to buy, $5, cans of Coke. And so we sit down, and we just start sketching the girls, and the girls immediately are like, well, these guys are not going to try and have sex with us after our set. So they were super happy. And so they started, posing and playing for us. Meanwhile, we went in there and we spent max $100 maximum for the cover, and then paying off the bouncer and buying some drinks, $100. And we filled up these sketchbooks full of new drawings. And then my friend's like, okay, we've got a bunch of girls in here, but it's a college class, so we're gonna need some men too. And I'm like, no problem. Thursday night, it's ladies' night. So we're gonna come back on Thursday, draw some dudes. And this is the thing that's gonna make you laugh in this video. So when we go into the art class, and if you've ever been to art college, again, like one of you understands what I'm talking about. The rest of you are like, this is the stupidest fucking video of all time. Um, when we'd go into the art class, it's a classroom in a college, and it's cold. There's, air conditioning going on, and the guys would come in disrobe. And let's just say if you're a guy and it's cold and you're not in a super sexy, situation, it's not the most presentable for your junk as you probably are in, normal life. So these guys would come in, and you're drawing them, and you're like, there's no dick here. It's just they were very weird drawings. However, if you go to the strip joint at like Thursday for, ladies night, and you're getting the warm up and you're drawing dudes, like suddenly, like you're actually getting you know, you're actually completing the objective, the assignment for the course, and you're it's so all of us, the little group who went to the strip joint got A's. And the teacher was like, I don't know how the fuck you did this. It's really good. Like you filled this out. And we're all like laughing because we spent like $300 total for the entire semester, where our fellow classmates were spending thousands of dollars. And the moral of this story is sometimes success takes weird turns, but if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. I'm not sure that's the moral of the story, but anyway, I've been sitting on this story for a long time. Again, it's a comic channel, so you're like, what the fuck does this have to do with anything? I guess I'm going to say art. It has to do with art. So, enjoy my funny, wacky story. I got it off my chest. And now unsubscribe from the channel because it's a bunch of bullshit, but hopefully this made you laugh. And this is a little personal bit of me. Wow, this is probably the most personal video I've ever done. So there you go. Enjoy, and thanks for listening.